Welcome back to Red vs. Blue episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 38, Kit BFF, which stands for Keep in Touch, Best Friends Forever. This is also the season 2 finale. Tucker, having returned to Blue Base with Caboose and Donut at this point, clarified with Church that Lopez and Sheila were simply gone when Church got back, with Church confirming, adding that they left a note entirely in binary that states that they had in fact left to start their own robot army just as they said they would, with Church sarcastically stating how great that was, and Tucker questioning if they had a non-compete clause, which is where a fired employee or a team member agrees to not enter competition with their employer. Church ignores the question, further reading the note which instructed the Blues to meet them in the middle of the canyon at 0600 military time to discuss the Blues defeating or surrendering to them, with Tucker clarifying that was also when the Blues were supposed to surrender to the Reds, insinuating trouble could go down, but Church was just focused on deciphering whether 0600 meant 6 o'clock or 600 minutes from now, which would be 10 o'clock, continuously second-guessing himself. Tucker, somewhat annoyed, suggests getting a day planner, admitting how ridiculous military times were. Back at the top of the Red Base, Simmons questioned Sarge, who, after making an unknown deal with Tucker, was working on 2 robot bodies identical to Lopez, with the exception of being blue and black, respectively, on how the robots were coming along, with Sarge clarifying it was going great due to the new color-coded instructions, making things easier, laughing due to how the instructions also made the failures of Sarge's previous creations laughably obvious. An awkward stare ensues between Sarge and Simmons, as Sarge remembers that Simmons was one of his creations, technically, very hesitantly assuring Simmons that he was an exception, and that no mistakes had been made on him, nervously chuckling, almost cementing the lie. Simmons, either due to being a kiss-ass or dumb, doesn't pick up on the lie, complimenting Sarge on how great he was with creating, especially without any training or official certification. Ironically, Simmons shoots himself in the foot right as he says this. When Sarge asks for clarification why Simmons would do that, in disbelief at Simmons' stupidity, Simmons simply claims that he just does that sometimes now, unsure why. Sarge, realizing the reason, simply states that he's sure it was simply user error, implying it was Simmons' own fault somehow, even though he knew it was due to his shitty creation skills. Just then, Griff joined up with Sarge and Simmons, informing them that it was almost meeting time, asking if the robots were ready yet. Sarge clarified that he was just adding the finishing touches, as he proudly introduced the 2 silent robot bodies, the black one being named Francisco Montique Zanzibar, and the blue one being named simply Robot Number 2, introduced with a lot less enthusiasm. Griff then questioned why Robot Number 2 didn't get a fancy name, with Sarge specifying it was because he designed him with a sass-back chip to make him annoy the Blues with sass. But he overdid it and made Robot Number 2 reject all the names Sarge came up with Robot Number 2 responding with a jingle, which was supposed to represent him saying, "Stick it, you're not my real dad." Sarge clarified that him overdoing the sass actually worked out fine, though, stating it allowed him to use it to his advantage to make some special modifications to him, calling him Numero Dos, demonstrating the special modification. He instructed Griff and Simmons to watch, as he simply called Robot Number 2's name, stating, "Code word dirtbag." This code word caused Robot Number 2 to beep and run up to Griff, punching him in the balls as Griff yelps in pain, complaining, much to Sarge's satisfaction, as he laughs, calling the feature nifty. Simmons excitedly agrees with how awesome the feature is, due mostly to how it targeted Griff specifically, and repeatedly asks Sarge to let him try it out. Before Sarge can even respond, Simmons clears his throat, declaring, "Code word dirtbag," causing Robot Number 2 to strike Griff in the balls as it beeped once again. Griff, not realizing the command was specifically targeted towards him, willingly states, "Code word dirtbag," after mistakenly claiming that 2 could play at that game to Simmons. Robot Number 2 beeps, striking Griff in the balls for a 3rd time. Griff annoyedly shouts, "Son of a bitch," in reaction to how he essentially hit himself. Sarge then explains that the code word was not Robot Number 2's only special feature, leading Simmons to question what he meant. Sarge mischievously replied that he didn't want to give anything away, but then, presumably from sheer excitement, immediately revealed the secret, stating that one of the robots had a hidden megaphone that would allow them to eavesdrop on the Blues whenever they wanted, and the other robot contained a 10-megaton bomb, laughing. Sarge then realized that he just revealed the secrets, telling Simmons and Griff only to suppose these things, before immediately simply admitting that he just gave them away. Griff responds only by saying, "Yeah, you kinda did," disappointed and annoyed by Sarge's carelessness, revealing of the features, but more so his stupidity. Meanwhile, inside the Blue Base, Caboose was keeping watch over Donut, holding him at gunpoint. Donut, surprisingly relaxed, struck up a conversation with Caboose, mentioning how he thought this was what they called the calm before the storm, referring to the little time remaining before the meeting. Caboose, stupidly, not fully knowing what was going on, responds that he called it nap time. It came right before food time, and then came food nap time, which Caboose further stated was his favorite time of them all, making little sense. Donut then mentions to Caboose, knowing it was almost time for the meetup, then heartfeltly informed Caboose, calling him Mr. Caboose, that regardless of them being on different teams and potentially never seeing each other again, he would always remember their time together, referring to these conversations and games of truth or dare, further stating to Caboose that, despite anything bad that could happen during the meetup, he would always consider Caboose his friend now and forever. Caboose, being so focused by his own fucked mind, responds only by randomly stating how Private Donut sounds like Private Biscuit. Donut, crying at this point, possibly due to both having to leave Caboose and his non-acknowledgement of his heartfelt message, admits that it does. Meanwhile, it was now 0600, and Sarge, Simmons, and Griff were standing in the middle of the canyon with Robot Number 2 and Francisco Montigue Zanzibar. After standing in silence for a while, Griff questioned if the Blues would show up. Simmons answered that his gut was telling him no, but reminded Griff that his gut was now artificial, made of an advanced polymer, which was a chemical substance made up of very large molecules, clarifying that it meant it didn't know what it was talking about, calling it stupid. Sarge then states the phrase, "Great Caesar's toast," in alarm as he spots Sheila and Lopez, who have also shown up in the middle of the canyon. Lopez with his armor somehow painted back to brown. Sarge assumes the Blues were the ones who sent Sheila and Lopez, stating how they brought the heavy artillery, as Lopez questions why the Reds are in the middle of the canyon, stating he and Sheila weren't scheduled to send a letter and conquer them until next Tuesday. Meanwhile, Caboose and Tucker had arrived with Donut, standing a bit further down from the Reds, Caboose still holding Donut at gunpoint, warning him he stepped far enough. Sarge took notice of them, and how they were lining up in flanking formation, which is where you attack your opponent from the side in the military, calling them jackals for doing so, and causing him to warn Griff and Simmons to keep their eyes peeled, as things could get ugly. Meanwhile, Tucker was attempting to get into contact with Church on the radio, clarifying if he was there. Church, standing on a cliff above the Blues and Donut, bitterly confirmed, yelling in complaint that he'd been trying to reach Tucker for 10 minutes, questioning what was going on. Tucker apologized, defending that his radio was still occupied from the Reds' transmissions after he broadcasted Lopez's love song. This led Church to ask if Tucker was at least getting any good information from the transmissions, with Tucker denying, stating that all he could make out was two guys bickering like an old married couple, referring to Griff and Simmons, only half-jokingly stating he had only been listening for 5 minutes, but already knew they were deeply in love, questioning why they couldn't see it. Church then got on with the reason for the call, instructing Tucker to get prepared for their planned operation, calling it a circle of confusion as he looked through the sniper rifle. Tucker responded that it looked more like a triangle than a circle from down in his position, referring to the shape formed in the distance between Red Team, Blue Team, and Church. Church annoyedly questioned what Tucker meant, and when Tucker clarified that the shape formed didn't look like a circle, stating it was just a side note, Church got pissed off, suggesting other bad names such as Triangle of Confusion, Rhombus of Terror, and Parabola of Mystery, angrily questioning who really cared what it was called, demanding Tucker to get the goddamn show started, referring to the exchange. Tucker apologizes, tired of Church's bitching, professionally stating that they were beginning the primary commencement phase, referring to the beginning of the exchange. Caboose, utterly confused, warns Donut to be quiet, claiming they were going to talk about his golden flaky crust in the meeting, calling him Commander Poppin' Fresh. In reality, Tucker shouted to the Reds that the Blues were in fact there to surrender, suggesting that each side send a prisoner or representative from each group to the other side simultaneously to make sure the deal goes smoothly and timely, so no one can surprise one another. Griff, distracted, finally spots Lopez, not spotting him with Sheila before, who is ranting about how he'll no longer take orders from humans. Griff knows for sure it's Lopez after hearing the seemingly endless Spanish, and somehow doesn't question Sheila's response to Lopez's statement, "Tell him, Big Daddy." The exchange begins as Tucker instructs Donut, who he called Pinky, to be the representative, sending him over, thereby releasing him. Caboose yells goodbye to Donut, calling him Major Cinnamon Bun, promising that he would always remember his buttery goodness, presumably being 100% serious, but then questioning who Donut was 5 seconds later. Simmons notes that the Blues had released Donut, leading the Sarge to order Francisco Montigue Zanzibar as their representative, telling him to go front and center, calling him Francis X. As soon as Lopez spots Francis X, he gets pissed, claiming to Sheila how the humans plan to turn their fellow robots against them. Tucker then worriedly questions Church on the radio if it was really a good idea to put Lopez around a bunch of other robots, sensing the anger in the tone of his Spanish, with Church bitterly responding for Tucker to focus and just stick to the plan of receiving the first robot, assuring him he would draw Lopez's fire with a sniper rifle if he tried anything. Just as Francisco Montigue Zanzibar was running up to fight, to right in front of Donut, Lopez intercepted between them, pointing his gun at Francisco, threatening him not to move, believing him to be a willing traitor of the robot army. Sarge, thinking Lopez was still with the Blues, assumed it was a potential double-cross trick from the Blues, with them technically having 2 representatives in that case, if you counted Donut, so he essentially rescinded the deal, ordering both Francisco, calling him Frankie Zane, and Donut back to the Red side, basically wanting Donut to take the chance to escape as punishment for his assumption of the Blues breaking the deal. Tucker tries to order Donut to stay where he is and not go back, while simultaneously aiming his gun at Lopez. Simmons questions this, making the same assumption that Lopez was still with the Blues, questioning why the Blues were aiming at each other. Sarge annoyedly incorrectly responds that the Reds had been outplayed, still believing that, and then warns Griff and Simmons to take cover, revealing he was going to call command and ask for an airstrike, desperate to take out the Blues. When Sarge calls, Tucker hears the static due to still being connected to their radio transmission, angrily questioning what the hell the source of the noise was. Meanwhile, Sarge confirms his identity, asking through the static if the command can read him. He is greeted by Vic as the static ends, who clarifies if it's Private Tucker who is calling him. Sarge, confused, asks, "Private who?" correcting him with who he was. Vic, panicking, flustered and embarrassed, greets Sarge and apologizes, shrugging off his mistake by simply asking what command could do for him. Sarge informs him of his situation, stating he was up to his Hodges and hyenas, revealing his need for an airstrike pronto. Vic accepts Sarge's request, promising to send in an airstrike on the Blues, but then casually reminds him he obviously needs to send in the requisition form via fax, as if that was the easiest thing. It unfortunately wasn't, as Sarge reveals he can't since he used the spare parts from the Reds fax machine to build Simmons 2.0. As if on cue, Simmons shakes as a fax machine sounds rings from inside him, with Simmons excusing himself, stupidly defending that it must have been something he ate, as Griff questions Simmons why there's paper coming out of his ass. Tucker, hearing this entire conversation on the radio, angrily questions Vic on what the fuck was going on, including how he knows the Red Team and why he was helping them against the Blues, in pure disbelief. Vic becomes panicked and flustered, yet again, awkwardly greeting Tucker, surprised that he's on the Reds' radio. He struggles to answer, simply stuttering and saying, before simply stating he has a bad connection as an excuse, and hanging up, as Sarge yells for him, trying to get his frequency back, urgently stating the Reds needed him. Meanwhile, Vic, alone in his office, only states to himself how bad for business the situation was going to be. Back in Blood Gulch, Sarge disappointingly states to Griff and Simmons that they were out of luck. Out of ideas of what to do, he loaded his shotgun and instructed Griff and Simmons to open fire as he screamed, "Today is a good day to die," desperately just intending to fight the Blues head-on recklessly, killing as many as possible. Griff, obviously against this idea, suggests to Sarge that today was a good day to retreat, asking if they could push back dying to a week from Friday, with Simmons agreeing, suggesting leaving death as an open action item and coming back with better ideas at the next meeting. Sarge, both going crazy from the stress and wanting to die in her badass way, denies the suggestions, claiming their deaths have to be today for the honor of their ancestors. He then screams a loud-ass battle cry as he begins to run towards the Blues and making kaboom noises excitedly, aiming his shotgun, pretending to shoot it. At the same time, Tucker begins yelling for everyone to wait where they are and stop fighting, claiming that everything they've known was a lie regarding the Reds and Blues and their war, stating that red was blue and blue was red, coming to this conclusion due to Vic being in contact and helping with both teams. All of this simultaneous yelling, combined with the static coming from Tucker's radio, trying to connect both team transmissions, creates utter chaos and constant noise, to the point where it's practically impossible to hear anything. Church runs down from the cliff and demands Tucker to shut off his radio to lessen the chaos, stating it was giving too much feedback. To make things more chaotic, Caboose follows in Sarge's footsteps, pretending to shoot his gun as he screams loudly, stating how fun this was, and Sarge screams "damn it" as he pretends he misses a shot, screaming he loves blood and violence and has a boner for murder. Simmons, even despite being a kiss-ass, asks Sarge to be quiet, being the only one actually trying to listen to Tucker, who was still screaming his pleas to stop fighting. Sheila then states that she loaded her cannon, ready to fire, and Church utilizes the chaos to take the chance to possess Robot Number 2 as it quacks and says Higa Herger. Simmons asks Tucker for clarification on what he said, as Tucker tries one last time to clarify how red vs. blue is all a lie, but then the chaos reaches its climax, as Doc arrives in the big purple thing from the cave, which was revealed to be a huge purple flying alien vehicle, the Ghost from Halo, and shoots Tucker dead on with its blaster, causing Tucker to scream "son of a bitch" as his blood splatters everywhere, and he's blown into the air. Sarge, Church, and Lopez all simultaneously yell, "What the hell is that?" with Lopez saying it obviously in Spanish, questioning what the hell that vehicle was. At this point, Caboose, Donut, Francisco, and Lopez are standing together as Donut shouts in panic, identifying Doc as the Cave Devil, urgently warning everyone to run for their lives as Doc continues shooting, apologizing for the big explosion as his O'Malley persona, who was the true one behind the attack, apologizes that the explosion wasn't bigger, and Evil laughs. Church, in utter surprise, correctly identifies the laugh as O'Malley's, stating he'd know it anywhere, as O'Malley shoots yet another shot, and Doc apologizes again, causing everyone almost caught in the last shot, in addition to Church scattering as they run once again. Church then instructs Francisco to come with him as the two of them run together towards the injured Tucker, with Church wanting to make sure Francisco doesn't get destroyed in the blast. Lopez, identifying Church and Francisco as the two robots who he'd used as traitorous, instructs Sheila to stop them, leading her to take pleasure in obliging as she fires her cannon, missing. In the midst of the chaos, Sarge and Griff end up hiding behind the same rock. Sarge takes the opportunity to inform Griff that since they were going to die, he was glad that this rock situation gave them the chance to make amends in their last moments, stating that he only hoped he would die before Griff, so he wouldn't have to experience the horror of losing a man on the battlefield. Griff, unsure if Sarge was sarcastic or not, responded coldly by saying he hoped Sarge died first as well, clearly not interested in making amends. Meanwhile, Church and Francisco approach Tucker's body as Church screams his name to get his attention, questioning if he was okay. Tucker struggles to respond due to his injuries, only managing to murmur, "Church, the purple guy is..." Church informs Tucker that he knows it's O'Malley, and that he must have got into Doc somehow, wrongfully assuming that's what Tucker was going to say, but Tucker then corrects him, simply stating, "No, the purple guy's an asshole." Caboose then walks up to Church and Tucker, questioning why Tucker gets kidnapped during battle and he doesn't, stupidly misunderstanding the fact that Tucker was near deathly injured. Church and Caboose then both hear O'Malley's extremely loud laugh echo throughout the canyon, causing them to turn around and spot Francisco beside Sheila, who worriedly informs them that O'Malley just kidnapped Lopez aboard his vehicle, asking them for help getting him back, with Church responding in shock, asking where O'Malley went as the camera pans to Red Base, where O'Malley was now standing atop with Lopez, as he evil laughed, declaring, "Here I am, you fools." Church, annoyedly confused, questions how O'Malley got up there so fast, with Donut additionally commenting, "That guy's wicked fast," in disbelief. Doc takes it as a compliment, thanking Donut, explaining he participated in track in high school since it was the least directly competitive sport he could find. Griff annoyedly weakly rebutted that track sucks, with O'Malley also weakly rebutting that Griff sucked. O'Malley then followed up by, being the intentionally cliché villain he is, stating his plan to escape and never be seen again, calling Lopez his metallic hostage, further clarifying that he may be seen again, but only if he wants to be seen, warning them to look out if he sees them before he sees him. Essentially just a cliché villain monologue, ending in a final threat and evil laugh that the universe will be his. Sheila cries in desperation for Lopez, as O'Malley instructs him to move it through the Red Base teleporter, calling him Brownbot. Lopez reluctantly obliged, as O'Malley followed, shouting, "Into the abyss!" The chaos calms down, as Church instructs everyone to hold their fire, calling an emergency truce, and both teams convene right outside the Red Base. Caboose and Church on one side, Sarge, Simmons, Donut, and Griff on the other. Griff immediately breaks the silence by pleading for someone to explain what just happened, extremely confused, with Church speedily summarizing that the O'Malley shot one of the Blues and took Lopez, simply calling O'Malley the guy in the scooter. Sarge, seemingly just realizing this now, shockingly counters that the Reds need Lopez for very specific reasons, suspiciously specifying that they didn't need to explain them to the Blues, so the Reds needed to get him back. Church reveals that the Blues needed to get someone back as well, being Doc/O'Malley, calling him the evil guy, since Doc is the only one who can heal Tucker. This leads everyone to come to the same conclusion, being that both teams would have to work together to accomplish their objectives, forming the united faction called the Reds and Blues for the first time. Griff is the first one to admit it aloud, stating how ironic it is. Simmons counters that it's not that ironic, correcting that ironic would be if they had to work together to hurt each other. Donut jumps into the argument, countering that ironic would be if instead of O'Malley, who he calls that guy, kidnapping Lopez, Lopez kidnapped him. Sarge then suggests that it would be ironic if their guns didn't shoot bullets, but a healing sap that cured all wounds, followed by Caboose stupidly suggesting that it would be ironic if they were all made of iron. These suggestions go on for 2 hours straight, until Church, extremely bored and annoyed, manages to put an end to the debate by very slowly clarifying that while they all agree that the situation isn't the most ironic, it is weird that they have to work together, and disturbs their boring routines in an unexpected way, finally clarifying if everyone is happy with that sentiment, with Sarge confirming. Simmons, who had been working on readjusting the teleporter to Lopez and O'Malley's coordinates during the debate, then confirms that he had just finished, meaning the mission could begin. But not before Sarge suggested that each team should leave behind one member so that neither team can trick the other and take over the canyon, with Sarge volunteering Donut. Caboose stupidly states the blue team will leave Corporal Sandwich, unclear if he meant Francisco or if he thought Donut was part of their team. But when Church quietly calls his name, he takes the hint and states that they will actually be leaving Sheila. Donut thanks the Blues sarcastically, ensuring them that if she did try and trick him, Donut could hold off Sheila on his own. Church then instructs everyone to go in one at a time, further telling Sarge to go first. Sarge obliges, screaming, "Today is a good day to teleport." Geronimo, in a reference to his good day to die phrase, as he goes through the teleporter, with Caboose shouting, "Pascat away!" as he immediately follows him. Simmons then mentions to Griff he had a feeling he would never see Blood Gulch again. Griff questions if that's really a bad thing, with Simmons clarifying he didn't say weird bad, just weird, indicating that it was definitely a good thing, as Blood Gulch sucked ass as he went through the teleporter. Church then clarified Griff's name, before suggesting they go through together. Griff simply replies, "After you," following Church through the teleporter after he goes in. Donut, now alone with Francisco's empty body and Sheila, asks himself if he should have told everyone, calling them the guys, about what O'Malley mentioned about sabotage back in the cave, before shrugging it off, nervously saying hi to Sheila, who immediately accuses him of staring at her treads, much to Donut's annoyance, who sarcastically apologizes. Just then, Francisco's body violently shakes, indicating a possession as Tex reveals herself, stating she's back and has something to say, calling everyone sons of bitches, before cutting herself off when she realizes most of the people were gone, questioning annoyedly where they went. She then spots Donut, asking if she knew him, before recognizing him still as the girl who killed her with the grenade, awkwardly staring at him as Donut says "uh-oh" in panic. Meanwhile, Sarge and Caboose spawn together in a lake, surrounded by shore, rocks, and trees, as Sarge yells, "Prepare to surrender, dirtbag," expecting to find O'Malley. Caboose, thinking the threat was directed at him, states that he surrenders, stupidly adding that it was Sarge's turn to surrender now. With Sarge clarifying he wasn't talking to him, calling him a moron, and then questioning where they were, as he fully realized their new surroundings. Elsewhere, Simmons spawned in an otherwise empty room, filled with other teleporters, also questioning where everyone was. As for Griff and Church, they spawned at Sidewinder, with Church stating that they now just had to find O'Malley, but cutting himself off, also questioning where everyone was, and Griff questioning with wonder where they were. A man in tan armor then ambushed the two of them from behind, holding them at gunpoint, and angrily yelling at them to freeze and drop their weapons. Church simply responds with "uh-oh," as the man repeats his demands, calling them dirtbags. This then causes Church to kick Griff in the balls, as his body, being robot number 2, leading Griff to scream in annoyance. Credits play Steady Ratted by Gunmetal Green, and the post-credits scene is Vic telling the audience not to stay after the credits when they end, apologizing for ending the rock music, and for that there's nothing exciting after the credits, and states that it's time for the good children to cross over since the inappropriate episode was now done.